Hey guys, Conquistador here, and today we're going to talk about Cyberpunk 2077 being compared to Hitler. What's up with that? Also, we're going to talk about how much it's improved since launch, as well as some more interesting news that's been happening since it's come out. So with that, let's talk about Cyberpunk 2077. Okay, so Conquistador here, and ready to talk about the controversial game that continues to make headlines, and it's got a lot of news coming out all the time with it. So as we all know, it experienced a rough launch, and the makers of the game, CD Projekt Red, are actually being sued by some of its investors for the less than truthful marketing due to the game being represented on a very high-end machine and implied that a last-gen console would get that same quality. So the PlayStation Store has even removed it from its library, so you can't even buy a digital copy off of their store as of now, due to all the false marketing. So the PlayStation Store holds a really high standard. They say they were really upset with how the game performed for those last gen consoles, and so CD Projekt Red is suffering for that. But even with that, and with all the refunds that they're having right now as well, it has still reached 13 million sold copies. So it's up there with Game of the Year sales. Now, but it hasn't been all bad though. There are patches being released that seem to be doing a great job at addressing many of the problems folks have been experiencing with the game. And there's a lot of fun and exciting things to do in the game. And also we have the Cyberpunk 2077 contest going on. That seems to be getting a lot of interest. There's been some really cool photos taken already that are really impressive to look at. I'd recommend taking a look at it yourself. It's really cool what people are doing with it. Also, it's as I said before, it's already one of the best-selling games of the year, but it's still pretty far from The Witcher 3. Now, The Witcher 3 was made by the same studio that made Cyberpunk 2077. So The Witcher 3 sales, I think, are somewhere around the 28 million mark, something around there. So it does have a long way to go to catch up to that, but the bar is set really high, so to speak. But I would like to note that even though the game had a bit of a rough launch with its own, the Witcher 3 had its own rough launch as well. It had its own share of bugs and glitches. The Elder Scrolls games, they had its own share of bugs and glitches. Grand Theft Auto 5, the Fallout games. There's a lot of AAA titles that had a rough launch. So I think that the hype that was around this game and the amount of glitches that people were experiencing, combined with the last gen console issues, I think that really is what has caused such an outrage in the gaming community for this game. But with all that said, I still think that once the patches come out, the game becomes more and more stable. More, all the little fixes are taken care of. And also, it's been hinted that we've got some free DLC content coming out pretty soon. I have a feeling that Cyberpunk is going to do really well in spite of everything, because it's a good game to play. I enjoy it myself. A lot of people are enjoying it. It's just had a lot of issues that came with it, which brings me to my next point. And I've said this before, and I think that this will remain true, is that Cyberpunk 2077 is never it was never meant to be a game for last gen consoles, and that its last delay, where it was said to be in gold status, was just to get it optimized enough to run on those older systems. And I really feel for the gamers who fell victim to this cash grab by the marketing team and the board who pushed this out because they're being influenced by the investors who want this game to come out. It's and so I really do feel bad for the gamers who ended up with these the unplayable versions of it. To be nice about it, but also another group of people that are getting a lot of flack, I'm also feeling for, are the developers of the game. The developers had no control over these launch dates, and they worked so much overtime to get this game out as soon as they did, and they were pushed for months, working 6-day weeks over, I think 10, 12-hour shifts, some longer than that, to get this game out as soon as it did. So I really feel for these developers who are getting all this negative feedback from people, and that they expected to get, the holidays off, and now they're still working to get these patches out and fix the game. So I really feel for these guys. But I personally have a higher end system, so I have experienced a few small bugs here or there, but it's crashed 2 or 3 times on me. But the game has met my expectations. I had realistic expectations. It plays a lot how I expected it to, and I've heard this sentiment shared a lot by other gamers who have similar opinions about the issues with this game and their own experience playing it as well. But ultimately, it's a next-gen game for newer hardware, and now that CD Projekt Red, it's had its stock price fall, and it's dealing with some lawsuit issues because of those marketing practices. So some of the investors are suing the studio. That reflects poorly on the gaming industry as a whole. So it's been hit or miss with the game so far. So that brings me to the main topic of this video. We have Paste Magazine just released an article comparing Cyberpunk to Hitler, where it says it's the game of the year in the same way that Hitler was Time's Man of the Year.
A wise guy, huh?
Now, the developers didn't have the same sentiment, to put it lightly, but they aren't happy. So let's go into a little bit more about this fiasco of an article. So in this article by Paste Magazine, it says, "The truth is that Cyberpunk has seen the most disastrous launch for a game of its size since, well, perhaps in the history of the game's business. The Metascore is 86 for PC, and consoles are around the 50s, an unthinkably low score. The game is a complete debacle from almost every angle and sums up everything that needs to be changed about video games." Now, I would agree so far with the article about the console versions having been a disaster for those older last-gen consoles. In that sense, yes, the article's right. The studio did fail on that front by misrepresenting the game. But anyways, the article continues on. It says about changing how video games, how they're made, to the marketing and who they're made for. Cyberpunk is the game of the year because it represents all the problems holding the industry back due to the size and scope of its massive failure. Cyberpunk is the game of the year in the same way Hitler was Time's Man of the Year in 1938. Not as an award or accolade, but as a warning and admonishment to the rest of the world. And no, we are in no way comparing a bad game to history's greatest monster, but if you're looking for an example of when an award isn't an award, time kind of set the standard back in 1938.
Oh, wise guys, huh?
So, this comparison to me is just plain stupid. It's ridiculous and it's too much. It was clearly, in my opinion, made as clickbait, but it's received a lot of controversy from both sides of the aisle since it's released. So, first off, the developers in the studio CD Projekt Red that worked on this game, they worked their butts off. They put in tons of overtime hours, and many are still skipping out on the holiday season to continue to push out the hot fixes and patches to make this game into what it should always have been. I continue to feel for these developers who and the gamers who are experiencing all this flack because of it. So then we have Philip Weber. He's a developer for CD Projekt Red. He responded with a popular and very concise tweet where it says, "I'll say it as delicately as I can, but seriously, F off." And so Derek Jenkins responded to that tweet for a bit of context. "As someone who has a solid command of the English language, I recognize that a valid analogy, recognizing infamy, was drawn out by the author. As a consumer's affairs professional of 20 plus years, I hope CD Projekt Red has learned a lesson about arrogance and greed." So Philip Weber responded with this. "Oh, I do understand the analogy is with the cover, not the man. However, using a solid command of empathy, you could also see how headlines like this one can affect developers who had nothing to do with release decisions, but who receive all this hate." So I absolutely agree with where the devs are coming from at this point. They truly are at the mercy of the board of the studio of CD Projekt Red. And the board is listening to the investors and the marketing team who are saying, release this game. They're basically begging them at this point. The game's been delayed so many times. They want to make their money back on it, and they want to get the sales going. And the developers really have no control over this. All they can do is just work more overtime, get the game out as soon as possible, and get it in an optimized enough version as they can. And so I think they had finished the game overall for the next gen consoles, and PCs and all that sort of thing. But they just didn't have enough time to give the game all the optimizations it needed to function properly on those last gen systems. I think that was the last thing they do on the list, and they just never got to it. But we also have responses from other devs from other studios, like BioWare, for instance, telling the author of the headline, basically, shame on you. And we have another dev from CD Projekt Red saying this comparison was beyond disrespectful and lacks any empathy. And I agree with him that when he says it's too much. It's definitely too much. This headline doesn't take account, the writer of this article doesn't take into account all the work that the devs really have put in, and that they had no control over that when it would launch. So it's unfortunate, but like I said, some people are enjoying the game and then others are not. It's really continues to be hit and miss with it, but hopefully we will see it continue to improve. for the people that are enjoying it, I'm happy for them. For those that aren't, at least they have the ability to get a refund. So it's, I know they've waited a long time to get the game and all that, but at least they have the opportunity to get the money back if the game is in an unplayable state. But it's really unfortunate. Now, we also have Forbes even commenting about the poorly made comparison, which also reinforces my own idea that this article was just a pure clickbait article. But on the other hand, the Paste Magazine article does make some good points on the fact of the overworked employees at CD Projekt Red, the lack of playability on the older consoles, and the lack of information on how badly the game would perform at launch for those older systems. So I can't, and even on newer systems too. So I can't say that the article doesn't make some valid points, because it does. Even pointing out the manipulation of the trailers that representing a different game than its launch version. So also it covers the fact that the reviewers of the game, they had to sign non-disclosure agreements and couldn't release their footage until after the game released. So there was a lot of manipulation going on, and the article does makes some good points on that side of the story. So with all that in the consideration, that really does give me another reason why I personally don't pre-order games. I think it's kind of an outdated system at this point, since games can all be downloaded now. You can download a digital copy at this point. There's not a finite amount available, so I really think that pre-ordering games is an outdated system, and it also forces developers to, when there's in Cyberpunk's case, you have all these people pre-ordering the game. I think it was 8 million copies were pre-ordered, which in turn causes the investors to want the game to be released so they can make more money, their money back, and make some profits. The board's being pushed by them, the board's pushing the devs, and they're setting the launch dates, and so it causes that kind of fiasco as well. So I think that pre-ordering probably should be done away with, since you can download games when they come out, right when they come out. You don't have to buy a disc of them anymore. So, but with that, tell me what you guys think about all this in the comments below. I'm interested in hearing, what your experience with the game has been so far. What do you think about this article about the game? Is it a fair comparison? What do you think? So let me know how you think. What's your thoughts on it? Also, I got a quick bit of bonus content for you. So if you're wondering why you can't view your character nude in first person, it's not a bug. CD Projekt Red confirmed that that's not a bug. A lot of people were wondering that. That is not the case. But the inevitable nudity mod has already come out. Yes, that's right. The modding community is already on top of things. Faster than they're getting some patches out, some HDR texture packs, a lot of improved car handling. There's a lot of stuff that the modding community is already fixing with the game before the studio has even fixed it. So if you're in the modding and that sort of thing, definitely check it out, because there's a lot of good stuff coming out with that. So I'm glad to see that the game's already getting a good response from the modding community, because I always felt that this was going to be one of those games where it got a lot of great mods, similar to like the Elder Scrolls or the Fallout games before it. And also, it looks like that it has been confirmed that there's going to be some free DLC content coming out soon. I think there's been some trailers released for that, so that's something you can look forward to as well. Basically, if everyone can just stay patient, wait a little bit longer, let the devs just push out some more of those patches and get those hot fixes in, I think that the game will ultimately become what it was always meant to be, and it will be a great game. Maybe not your favorite game, but I personally really enjoy it myself. I know a lot of people are enjoying it. If you like games similar to Fallout series, something like that, then you'll probably like this game. It's not like Call of Duty. I think a lot of people were expecting it to be closer to the Call of Duty as a first-person shooter and not like a first-person RPG. But it's an RPG first and a first-person shooter second. So I think a lot of people were disappointed in that regard and thinking that it would be a more action-oriented game and not so much RPG like it is now. But anyways, with that, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Tell me what you think about everything in the comments below. And with that, I'm going to be signing off. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And stay safe and stay healthy. I'll see you guys later.